Welcome to the Living Out podcast, helping people, churches, and society talk about faith and sexuality.
Friendship is something we value highly here at Living Out, and one of the things that makes singleness plausible. We wanted to dedicate some time to talking about what it is, why it matters, and how we can do it well. Here in today's episode, different team members from Living Out are going to be talking to some of their friends. I think there is a danger this episode could be cringy at moments, but I hope it is also helpful. Today, I'm going to be talking to my friend, Simon Dalton, who is a pastor down in the Welsh Valleys. He is a husband and a father of two. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Adam.
It's good to have you here. Now, so I think we've been friends since September 2009. Do you think that's right?
Something like that, yeah. At uni.
Something like that at uni. Indeed. Now, Living Out has asked us to talk about some of our favourite moments of our friendships. Do you want to kick us off?
Well, we have a running joke that we've only just become friends. So I don't know if I can say we've been friends for 15 years. Maybe it's when you asked me to do a podcast on friendship, I thought, maybe we are friends.
You know what? So I was just thinking, I was like, when is that going to come up? And it's come up straight away that we've just become friends right now.
Yes, that's it.
Well, it's interesting you tell that story because I would tell a different story of when we became friends. It was when we were in first year at university together, and Simon sat me down on a bench and he asked me, Adam, will you be my best friend?
I think you've added the word best in there. I feel like I made an intentional step towards you to be friends. And I think that's what part of what friendship is about that vulnerability and that and so actually I'd like to say that I was the courageous one in our friendship. And 15 years on, still friends.
Indeed. And actually, that's something I enjoy now about our friendship after all these years is our phone calls where we chat about nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually, even though we enjoy that nonsense chat, and I remember once having a car drive where it was you, me, and your and Simon's wife Lucy, and me and Simon were just joyfully chatting about nonsense, and then Lucy just like out of exasperation just like told us off. But that is at least something we can enjoy together, the nonsense chit chat.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I value about our friendship. The unfiltered nature of our conversations. And I think both of us as pastors or ministers it's just being able to have a place where you can talk and you can be honest, talk rubbish, but also kind of talk about emotions and all the difficult stuff. I think that's a great part of our friendship, at least.
Amen. Moving us on side, what do you think has changed about our friendship over the years? And what's been difficult about that, and how do you think have we navigated it?
Well, obviously, we were friends at university, so university life is very intense. We lived with each other for 2 years, was it? And you have friendship is easy when you're at university. You've got a lot of time, shared interests, and I think in the 15 years kind of preceding that. We've changed. What we've done in our life has changed. We're at different life stages. Like I've become a dad, and we've lived at opposite ends of the country. You've been in Edinburgh, and I've been in South Wales. So I think there's loads of different things that have changed. But I think what hasn't changed is our desire to fight for our friendship. I think that's been necessary though, because friendship can die easily if you don't put that effort in. What do you think?
Oh, you've moved me there, Simon. At the end, you're talking about fighting for our friendship. Because actually there's so much truth in that, isn't there? Because often we can want friendship just to feel very natural. It's like, it's just natural and easy that I'm talking to this person right now because they're my friend. Well, actually, you do have to be intentional about a friendship, and you have to work through even the highs and the lows of it. And fight for it. What do I think has changed? I think it's when I left. I do sometimes think. I do reflect. I was like, I'm the jerk who left.
Yeah, we were both in Cardiff together, and then you were like, "I'm too good for this place."
I needed to hunt out some other tall folk. I do think me leaving was the thing which made it harder in that respect, rather than just seeing each other every day, really. I think navigating that has always been trying to be intentional about meeting up and seeing each other. Like I remember, being in Edinburgh when I moved to Tunbridge Wells or London or North London, South London, and now here in Maidenhead, thinking through that actually, if I want this friendship like to work, I've got to actually come and like visit you guys down in the valleys, and actually that's the way that this friendship will like flourish. And I've also not I say this and I was intentional about it, but at the same time it's not like this was ever hard. I also along the way I've always known if I want to be a good friend with Si, I've got to invest in his family. Like that's partly because uh, you, Simon, like love and care for your family and like invest a lot of your time in them. So if I didn't also care about them, I just don't think you'd have any time for me. But also that sense of like, actually, if I am investing in Si's amazing wife Lucy and his boys, then actually that will help me and Si have a good friendship as well, because then it will just feel more natural. It won't feel like I'm the friend who's trying to take my buddy away from his family. Hopefully it feels like I'm the friend who really cares for his whole family.
Yeah, I think that intentionality has to be two ways, doesn't it? And I think when you want a friendship to work, you still have to put effort in. I think duty and delight go hand in hand. Yeah, I think we've been to visit you in every place that you've lived. And
Yes, you have. Sorry, I wasn't trying to imply you haven't.
It's been a yeah. But I think something that we've been conscious of is that particularly for you as a single guy, that just some of the, I guess, dangers of loneliness or whatever, and as a friend wanting to care for you in that, and being intentional in including you in our lives. And so you're the godfather to one of our children, and wanting to include you in our family life in that way. But also, like, we've had some great holidays together. We've done New Year's Eve every year, nearly, apart from in COVID, which I think we still did on Zoom, nearly every year since uni together. I think that intentionality is really important, and just realizing that at different times different things work. I think I've talked to you about this, but I read a great book that I want to plug by a guy called Phil Knox.
Please do.
Called the Best of Friends, and we preached a series on it a couple of years ago. But just realizing that friendship in your 30s particularly can get a lot harder, and that if we aren't fighting for those friendships, then they will die. And that different seasons require different strategies. And as a result of that, we've done a few trips, walked up a few mountains, stayed in a few hostels, that kind of stuff, just to make sure that we get that quality time with each other.
It's interesting as you were speaking, Si. I think one of the reasons why our friendship also kept on going is because you and Lucy are very forgiving and kind. Because as you were talking about your son, my godson, I remember being at his dedication, and a family member of yours came up to me, Si. I was like, I can't believe that you're still friends with Simon. And I was like, what do you mean? And then this family member was like, well, after that best man speech of yours, I just thought it might be the end of the friendship. So I think...
Oh man, I mean, when you wanted to talk about funny stories, your best man speech at our wedding was not a funny story.
Yes,
it's a best man speech that was labelled rude and inappropriate by my father-in-law. I'm not quite sure he's forgiven you.
Well, thankfully you and Lucy, at least you act like you've forgiven me. Yes, and that is definitely a moment of great immaturity on my part. But moving us on, and we've already sort of touched on some of this. Actually, let's talk a little bit about the necessity to have vulnerability and honesty in friendship, and how this has benefited us. And like for me, I can speak about that so easily because I know how much it's benefited me. Like I think of an example last year where I went on a holiday. I don't know if you even remember this, Si. I was on holiday, and on this holiday, I met this American man, and like every single part of me just really fancied him. And I was like absolutely just torn and like battered and bruised. And I was on this holiday, and I didn't know how to process what I was going through. And I wanted to live for Jesus, but was feeling emotionally just absolutely drained. I didn't really have anyone I felt like I could talk to in the moment he was there. And so what I did was I called you, Simon, because I just needed to get it off my chest. And I needed someone to know about it, and I needed someone to pray about it. And it was strange because I don't think I was necessarily in that moment being like, oh, I need Simon to fix this, but I just needed someone to know. And the most natural person for me in that moment was, my good friend Simon. So that for me has been a moment where I've really valued our ability in our friendship to be vulnerable and to be real.
Yeah. And we, before we got on this this call, I started off, you asked me how I am. I said, yeah, fine. And I was like, actually, not fine. And, just good to be able to, like you say, to just talk about how things are really going and how we're really feeling without the expectation of someone fixing it. It's just someone knowing that you're not alone, isn't it? In the storms of life, knowing that there's like a brother in arms who's got your back. And that's something I really value about our friendship. And I think that's part of the reason that sometimes we just call each other just to talk nonsense. I think it's just a reminder that someone is there on the other end of the phone. And yeah, I think it's great.
So Simon, at the end of this time together, do you think we're finally friends?
I feel like this is the moment that we really became friends.
Finally, praise the Lord.
I'd like to say so.
And any other closing comments you want to throw in?
I could think of lots of things that I'd want to say. I think that our friendship has been one of the greatest evidences of God's grace in my life. And yeah, I think in a world that idolizes romantic sexual relationship as being the thing that will fix us, or I think friendship is a great antidote to that. And it's an indication into the heart of God. Jesus says, "I've called you friends," and to be able to understand that metaphor with a human face, I think that's part of what our friendship has done for us, at least for me. So.
Oh, and for me too. Yeah, I am incredibly grateful. Grateful for my friendship with you, Simon. Grateful for my friendship with Lucy. Grateful for the chance I get to hang out with your boys, who are just absolutely adorable. And I think in our friendship, I've seen something of God's just generosity. Like God is very generous to us. That when He calls us to follow Him, He does not call us to do that alone, but He calls us to do that in the context of family, brotherly, sisterly love, friendship. And I see some of God's generosity in my friendship with all of you.
You can get 20% off ebooks by Living Out Authors when you buy them through IVP. That's 3 books so far. Ed Shaw's Purposeful Sexuality, which asks the question, what is sexuality for? The Plausibility Problem, also by Ed, which looks at some of the missteps we've made that might make the single life seem implausible or impossible to live. And then there's Andrew Bunt's Finding Your Best Identity, looking at questions like, how do we find who we are? What does God say about identity? And how does that apply to sexuality and gender? You can read reviews of all of those books on our website, or head to the IVP website for your 20% ebook discount using the code LIVINGOUT20. That's all in capitals, LIVINGOUT20. Happy reading.
Hi everyone, Andrew here. I hope you're enjoying this episode where you get to meet some of the friends of members of the Living Out team. And now you get to meet one of my friends. I've got my friend Natalie Williams with me. Nat, hello. Thank you for joining me for a little chat.
Thanks for inviting me.
This feels like a weird kind of like bring your friend to work kind of day kind of thing. It's kind of a peculiar thing, but a nice thing. Nice to have you at work with me today. Nat, tell us who you are, what people should know about you.
So yeah, I'm Nat. I live in Hastings, which is near to Andrew in Bexhill. I am the chief exec of a charity called Jubilee Plus, which helps churches across the nation to meaningfully engage with poverty in their local communities. I am single, and recently will describe myself as joyfully single, although that hasn't been how I would have described myself for many years. I'm in my 40s. I became a Christian when I was 15 from a background of poverty myself. And Andrew is one of my favourite people.
Oh, I didn't even pay her to say that. No, that's lovely. Well, likewise. So now we're meant to talk about when we first became friends. And I think this is a hard question to answer because we were colleagues who then became friends. And so I wonder if we have the same answer to when we became friends. What's your perspective on when and how we became friends?
Oh, do you know what? I was going to say, I don't really know. I can't pinpoint it for when we became friends, but I do know that what has marked our friendship, and so it definitely must have started before this, is when I started counselling. So when I was having counselling, which I started in, I think, February 2017, so we were definitely friends by then because I talked to you about it quite a lot. And so I don't know, I don't really remember much before that. I remember working with you, but I don't remember, did we hang out before then? Did we start our regular trips to your favourite restaurant before then? I don't know.
My favourite establishment, which has been talked about on this podcast before, so regular listeners may know where that is. We'll leave them hanging on that. It might come up later. Yeah, well, one thing to clarify for listeners, I'm not the reason you went to counselling. It's not that we became friends and then you had to start counselling. That's not why you mark the start of the friendship at that point. I don't think. I don't know.
It totally sounded like
what
that.
You discussed with our mutual counsellor. We started working together in 2014, so that's probably about right. Probably after a couple of years, we'd developed a good relationship, and I think we kind of, I guess, bonded a lot over things like both working through some similar stuff actually in counselling, both being single, doing similar kind of ministry actually, or different types of ministry, but with overlap as well. It's one of those friendships, I guess, that has just developed through both the fact that our lives crossed a lot because we were working together, but also we found a lot of similarities and overlapping our lives.
Yeah, although I remember at the beginning, and I think we've had this debate over the many years we've been friends about whether your singleness is easier or harder than my singleness, because obviously I have had the hope of getting married, the unfulfilled hope of getting married, whereas you're not going to get married. And so I think the debate's always gone, we each think the other might be harder. Like, we're not always been fighting over my life's harder than yours, but like both like, oh yeah, that must be harder, no, that must be harder, and probably landed that they're both just difficult in different ways.
That's probably it, isn't it? Difficult in different ways at different times. Yeah, I think that probably is the reality. Tell me, I don't know if I want to ask this, what's one of your favourite stories about our friendship? And listeners, this could be fun because Nat and I recently realised we have no memories. If people listen to the last episode, I had this light bulb moment when our guest Catherine made this point that friendships can easily become talking about life and not actually doing life together, which is most of my friendships. And then Nat and I recently discussed that and realised that is our friendship, which we actually quite like, we're quite happy about. But do we have any fun stories?
Do you know what? I don't know that we do, which is really bad, isn't it? You know, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, I'd remember coming round to your place once for food that I can't remember what the food was, and to watch something that I think was something you really wanted me to watch, and I can't remember what it was, and I can't even remember if I enjoyed it or not. And it could have been, that means it could have been anything from Frozen, which I'm sure I would not have wanted to watch, through to Hamilton, which we both love, through to an episode of Bake Off, which I think we would both enjoy, but I can't remember what it was. Yeah. And so I was thinking that's one of
Hamilton.
I don't know if we've watched Hamilton together or not, and we've not. I don't think we've ever been to the cinema together.
We've been to the cinema together. We have.
Have we?
I don't remember what we saw, but I distinctly remember being at the cinema together in Eastbourne.
Okay, but do you know what? Then I was thinking, because we were talking about this whole thing of making memories together, but then I was thinking some of my memories with you are horrible, but not because of you, but just like I remember walking around a park or a field or something with you, me really crying because I was really upset about something, and us then sitting on a bench and me crying some more, and then us walking some more and then me crying some more. And that's not a fun memory of us, but obviously is a precious memory in the sense that you were really there for me and were listening. And but I don't know, it has only because you've mentioned this, it now troubles me that we don't have any fun memories. But I'm sure, I think we laugh about stuff sometimes, don't we?
Oh, definitely.
But we do. Probably our friendship has been characterised by more serious conversations than laughter, and that's what we've needed from each other. So that's not a bad thing. But now I feel like we should make it our mission to make each other laugh more, or I don't know. We need to do it let's do a tandem skydive attached to each other. That will be a memory.
Well, ironically, what we discussed last time we discussed this is we need to make some memories this year. So if one of us dies, we have a story for our funerals. If we do a tandem skydive together, that won't be needed because we'll both die. We'll both die if you have a joint funeral, frankly. People can try and find fun stories to tell about us there. So maybe that's not quite the way to go. But I think part of it's our personalities. We both like talking deep, talking openly. We're both very happy just to sit in a restaurant for a couple of hours and talk, or more than that, just talk deeply. And that is meaningful and fulfilling to us. So yes, it's not that we suddenly realised our friendship is a sham or really bad or isn't really great, because actually it is really great. But also I think it would be nice to make a few memories. Do you want to do things? I think we have thought about being more deliberate about that.
Does this count as making a memory?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, isn't that time you came to work with me? And we realised our friendship is peculiar. I guess so. Well, I had one. It's not quite a funny story, but it's a story I really love. And I don't think you probably quite know this, but I think you are basically the reason I've ended up working for Living Out.
Oh.
Because quite a number of years ago, you and I went out with a group of people from our church to have fish and chips somewhere, I think. And somehow in the conversation, it came up. And I think I made the joke. We were talking about this training course that some young people in our church do, like a gap year program. And I think I made the joke that we should do some teaching on singleness on that course. And you were like, yes, we should. And so you contacted the guy who runs it and said, Andrew and I should do some teaching on singleness for these gap year students, which happened. And it was from that I was first invited to speak in a church on singleness and sexuality, and then another church, and through which all my kind of speaking and teaching and writing on sexuality and singleness and identity and stuff that's flowed from that grew from, and which eventually ended up me being on the Living Out team. And who knows if that would happen if you hadn't been wonderful plucking that. It says, we should do that, and got us a speaking engagement on singleness. So I think it's your fault I'm here.
You've just given me credit for a lot of your writing, speaking, your kind of life, Andrew, which, what an honour. But actually, do you know what? I do remember going for fish and chips. Don't remember that conversation. Do remember us speaking together on that training course, because what stands out in my mind about that is you gave this most wonderful biblical overview of singleness and how singleness is, just something to be treasured and prized and whatever. And I think I got up right on the back of it and went, yeah, but none of us actually believe that, do we? And was like, come on, man, be real. But it's funny because obviously back then I wasn't joyfully single, and now I am. So now I would get up on the back of it and go, and you can live like that. But back then I wouldn't have done that. So I do remember these. I remember the fish and chips, and I remember the teaching together, which was fun. And probably we've not done that much, have we?
No, that might be the only time actually. Yeah, that's true. No. Well, I feel reassured. We have more of a friendship history than we thought.
And we probably should speak on singleness together more, because we've got different perspectives and reasons on it. So there you go. Now I can be plucky and say, if you're listening to this and you want a combination of speakers on singleness, then Andrew and I are available now for bookings, which we're actually not really, are we? But
no, we're quite busy. No, but okay, yeah. What about we've mentioned this a bit already. What's the place of kind of vulnerability and honesty in our friendship? And that's one thing we've talked about in this series. We think it's really important. How is that? Being a part of our friendship.
I think our whole friendship's been built on it. I think we've just pretty much, I don't remember us being friends without having real honesty, real vulnerability, tears. I think it kind of just started in that place. And so I think partly because of our shared kind of experience around counselling and working through our respective I was going to say issues, which I hope isn't an offensive word, but I think we both know we've got some, so and so it's actually been rooted from the outset in a real vulnerability. I don't think you and I could have a friendship now that had, I think it'd be really odd if we just sat down and talked about the weather or something, because we've never really done that. And so I think it's really formed the foundation of our friendship. And I think that's been one of the things that's been really precious about our friendship, is knowing that actually whatever we're upset about, I think for both of us, we know we've got a safe place. Even if what we're upset about is completely unreasonable, we know it's out of proportion to the reality of the situation. We know that we're more angry than we should be, or more tearful than we should be, or whatever. I think we both know we're a safe place to go, this is how I feel, and I'm not going to stay here, but I need to be able to express what's going on with me in this moment. And so, I would think our whole friendship has been formed on that, and it's hard to imagine what it would look like if we didn't do that.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And I think you're right, it's a good way of describing it, and I think it's one of the things I so value about the friendship of there's honesty and vulnerability, and we really can, share honestly what's going on, where we're at, in a context where we know we're not going to be judged. And even you say, actually, even if it's a bad place we need to move ourselves on from, we're not going to rush each other to do that. We're going to acknowledge the reality of the feeling, and sometimes say the tough words to each other, and certainly share the encouragements for each other, but in a context which always feels safe. And I think part of what I value about the kind of vulnerability and honesty in our relationship, a lot of which in a sense actually gets conducted over messages, texts and stuff. We don't get to see each other in person very often, sadly, or not hugely often, but we're in regular contact multiple times a week through text and stuff. And just, especially as a single person, I love that you're one of the people, one of the friends in my life, I think I can just message you at any point with anything, which might be very serious, might not be actually. And just, we do just check in regularly of how life's going and what we're up to and where we are in the country. We're both travelling loads for work. And I think as a single person, that just means a lot to me, having that kind of, regularity of contact and people friends I can just, share anything I want to with when I want to.
Yeah. And I think also what's been really fascinating for me is obviously we're both quite intense characters, but we don't have a particularly intense friendship, but we do have a very deep friendship. And so we can easily go, like, if we don't text each other for a couple of weeks, neither of us is going to complain to the other, like, where have you been? Why haven't you been texting me? I don't think we've ever had that sort of conversation. Equally, if we don't see each other we try and see each other once a month, don't we? But if we don't manage that, neither of us is then tearful about that. So I think that's been quite nice, because it's like our friendship's sort of been almost like in the centre of a storm, hasn't it? But not really affected by the storm. So neither of us have had issues with each other that we might have had with other friends and so that I think has been really helpful. But also I think we both know if I drop you a text and it just says, hey, how are you? I want a real answer. But you also know if you can't send me one right then, that I'm going to be fine with you going, yeah, okay, can't really chat in the middle of something right now. And then you'll give me a longer answer later. But you also do know that I want a real answer, and I'm not just, it's not a token, like...
Yes, that's true. I would never think of, I would always give you the full honest truth. I would never, some people say that, and because friendships are different and there's appropriate levels of disclosure in different friendships, some people think actually, I'm not going to fully disclose what's going on, but here's the answer. But it's true, I never even think for you, it's like, here's the truth, whether you like it or not.
And also we're both fine with things like, you tend to stay up a bit later than me. So if I say to you, unless you're in the middle of like something obviously really awful, if I say, sorry, I'm going to sleep now, you're, as far as I know, fine with that. And we pick it up the next day and, So it's kind of weird, isn't it? That combination of we talk about the deepest stuff, but I think we have a very light friendship in a good way.
Yeah, well, I guess a very healthy friendship, I think, in a sense.
Yeah.
I hope.
Hey, get us.
Yeah, that is.
That's good.
That is, all grown up in healthy friendship, get us. Yeah.
Gold star.
Brilliant. And what about, has anything, do you think, changed in our friendship over the years, whether for better or worse, and whether that's been easier to navigate or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've gone deeper, obviously, over the years, and obviously that's natural, isn't it? You're not going to start necessarily, even though we did start deep, I think we've gone deeper and deeper. I think, though, probably the thing that's changed, both of us have got much busier. And so obviously where we used to work together, we used to see each other a couple of times a week at least, even if it was just in the office and in passing. But now we have to be really intentional, don't we, about... And some people would probably laugh at us because, often what happens is, because you're more organised than me, you'll send me a list of dates, but both of us are really happy to plan the next 4 months in advance in a go to make sure we get that time together. So I think that's changed. I think also we probably... gently push back on each other more when we need to, and I feel like there's times where we disagree on some stuff and we're all right to have that conversation, whereas obviously in the early days we probably wouldn't have done that so much, I guess. But mostly it's good changes other than the busyness, I think, and struggling to find the time to see each other.
And I think I agree, and I think particularly when we weren't working together anymore, so therefore weren't seeing each other in an office context, that changed it. But then I think we have been quite good at being deliberate about it, and then partnering that with having to be deliberate because both of our lives getting more busy and travelling a lot and stuff. So I think there's been change, but we've navigated it okay, but it has required that deliberateness, which I think is a characteristic of healthy friendship. It has to be prioritised, has to be a deliberate choice.
Definitely agree with that. But also I think because we both want to plan in the time, whereas, we've got mutual friends who are much more spontaneous than we are. Yes. And so that's harder because I asked one of our mutual friends today, I haven't had a response yet, could we plan in the next couple of months, knowing full well she will not enjoy that process. And I know that that's just her temperament, so that's absolutely fine. But it helps that you and I like to plan.
Yeah, so bless them. Yeah, they get that from both of us. We both send through dates to them and the way ages, and but that's okay. You find the ways that different friendships or different personalities work. We're almost running out of time, sadly. But anything else, Nat, you'd like to say about friendship?
Just that I think what you said about intentionally pursuing it, just carving out the time, it's just so important, isn't it? Like, we all need friends who we can go really deep with, who we can be really honest, even be really honest about how we're feeling about God, and stuff like that. And especially in ministry, I think that's true, because it can be a pretty lonely place. And so just, I don't know, cultivating friendship, I think, is so, so important. And hopefully everyone listening to this is on that journey of being intentional, being deliberate. But also, we've got to have grace for the people who aren't like us. And so there are some people who just naturally, like our mutual friends, who are more spontaneous, more just like to go with what they feel like on the day, don't really like to plan loads in advance. We've got to have grace for them and realise there's no rejection there. There's no, that's not where they're coming from. That's just a different personality. So, yeah.
No, really good. Thank you. Really helpful. Well, I've quite enjoyed Bring Your Friend to Work Day, so I think we should do this again. Really good. That is the end of this episode, and actually the end of this series. So thank you, Nat, for joining us for this. Thank you to everyone who's featured on this series, and thank you to you for listening. Do remember to share the podcast with people who might find it interesting. Rate us, leave a review. That really helps people to find it, and make sure you're subscribed, because it's the end of this series on friendship, but we'll be back very shortly with a brand new series looking at some big questions people have about sexuality and helping us all think through them. So make sure you're subscribed so you get all those episodes delivered to wherever you get your podcasts. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye.